Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the law of attraction, manifesting success stories show comes in. If you are ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am back with the fabulous Kate for interview number 19. Woo! Yay! Welcome, Kate. What's awesome?
Oh my gosh, everything is awesome. My business is doing awesome, and my life is amazing as far as not only my business, but my relationships all around. My kids, my relationship with David, my friends, all of that's amazing. Balance in my life is amazing. It's just everything. I mean, how long do we have? I could probably take this whole episode to just talk about the amazing.
Yay. That's awesome. I love it.
And I just got done doing my big ride that I've been training for. So.
Yeah. Let's hear about that. Tell us what you did and a little bit about why you did. Yeah. Tell us all about it.
Can I give you my total first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I got to get that out of the way first.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So here we go. It's $242,521.08.
Yay! Oh my God, that's amazing.
I love it.
I love it too. And since our last interview, how much is it?
$10,508.91. And might I add that I'm doing the 10,000 over. And this is my 10,000.
Manifest 10K already here.
It's already here. Awesome.
Oh,
and the last 5,000 of it was just in the last 30 days.
Yes, right? 5,000 in 30 days.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, so much to talk about.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, well, let's start there. Then we can we'll get to the race, but I'm as excited to talk about this as your race. But so 5,000 in 30 days, right? And that is amazing. All of that from your business?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah. And the cool part, I mean, the whole 10,000 wasn't just from my business, but the last 5,000 was. And, what was really cool about that is, we were talking a little offline before we hit record, is that I'm at that part in the Manifest 10K where we're supposed to put the to-do lists aside, which I haven't done any advertising. I haven't even done my podcast. I think I said that the last time.
Yes.
I haven't touched my podcast in 2 months, and I have 2 podcasts recorded. I can upload them. I can upload. I just haven't done them.
Yes.
So it's all about letting that go. But I've been training for this ride and having fun doing that. And every time I come back from a ride or a walk, or I had someone sign up with me, I'm like, oh, there we go. There we go. And this weekend when I was packing, or last week when I was packing for this past weekend's ride, my big ride, I had over $1,000 in when I opened up my email. It said, so-and-so paid, so-and-so paid. I mean, ended up being over $1,000, which I was so excited. And then, so I did my ride. And then last night I got home. Well, I got home Sunday, but yesterday I opened up my emails for the first time and I had over $2,000 sitting there for me. So I was like, this is awesome. I was like, bring it on.
Right? Because you get paid to work out.
Exactly.
That's our mantra. We've been right. And every time you're having fun or you're working out, which is the same for you too.
Yes.
Is you get paid, which
even
is
my
awesome.
Ride, I found money.
Yes.
Which was great. I love it. I was going way too fast to stop, but I found it. I was like, I'm counting that. I'm going to pick it up. I'm counting. And I celebrated it while I was on my bike. It was so fun. It was fun.
I love it. That's amazing.
It was amazing.
So good. And so I want to talk about, because it was it might have been just about a year ago that you left the wellness center. And I don't think we said this in an interview, but we're going to say it now. One of the things about, first of all, we'll come back to this, is you were really trying to hold on to those people. But at the same time, some of the future self friction, I'll call it, was people there they thought you charged too much.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Yeah. And that I think hurt me the most because I believed in what they did and I didn't even know. I had been there for almost 3 years and I never knew what they charged their clients or their patients or anything, but they all knew mine. I don't know how that happened, but they did. They all knew mine and they didn't want to refer to me because they felt that it was too much because a lot of what we did in that center was holistic care and it wasn't covered by insurance. So they all, everybody had to pay out of pocket. And that was part of the, I wouldn't want to say argument, but the discussions that we have was that it's not up to you to decide if your client can pay for that. It's up to them to decide that. So they should come to me and we should have a discussion and then let them decide. Yeah. So that was a big discussion that we had for months before I left. So that was kind of nerve-wracking because my thoughts around money at that point too, because everything that was going on. So I had them in my head. Yeah. And then I had you on my shoulder too saying, you got to raise your prices. You got to raise your prices. That's what happens when you get stuck. You need to move to the next level. And so I was in this battle of, oh my God, where do I put my prices? Yeah. I didn't know what felt good. Right. I couldn't tell because I wasn't listening to me. I wasn't listening to my insides, like my my instinct and my insides, my instinct and my intuition. So it was hard for me to hear that when I had everybody else in there.
Yeah. And I will say, mostly because I want people to make sure to hear this, like the price and the, my advice to change was because we had actually gone through an exercise where you had said it. Like it originated right with you and your future self and that. Right. And so, yes, I was definitely saying it, but I like to make it clear that it was a place from you, right? I wasn't just like, you need to raise your price, like, because some coaches do that. Like, some coaches do that, right? Some coaches, that is what they stand over and they're like, oh, like that's automatic sort of step one. And with us, it was a process and it was all revolved around your future self. And there were, it was that. And so, being stuck in that place of, oh, and no one's referring me. And so I'm definitely get how you couldn't hear yourself because everyone, and you're just like in this place where you're like, but I want referral. Like, you know, in your mind is like, but then where are my clients going to come from? And
exactly.
And so now you're, 5,000 in the last month. And did you lower your prices?
No. No, I did not. So it's great. It's learning to own up to it. And it's still not where I want them to be, but I feel that it's kind of, we've had this discussion in a lot of the podcast, the interviews already, is I need to own it, number one, and number two, be the person to be able to charge those prices. And so, and I have to feel good with that I can do that. So where I'm at right now, I'm totally comfortable with. I even I think I told you on the last interview, my prices are on my website now. And I on my website. And so I owned it. I own up to it. I know what I have isn't, you can't put a price tag on the information that I have and what I do. You can't. But I have to be able to be confident in that too. And they are. And I feel like I offer a lot more than that. So it's definitely, it was definitely an eye opener. It was definitely an eye opener.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I love sharing it because it is about owning it. It's not about, there is no magic number for anyone, or there is no magic formula except the magic formula that feels good to you. And by stepping away from that and getting out of that voice that says, this is too much, this is too much, like you've been able to own it and build it. And that's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I love it. And these past few months with not doing the to-do list, I've seen a lot of things, how I want to shift some stuff. And even my podcast is going to be different. A lot of stuff is changing. And I don't know if I'm going to do it all, when we finally get the go okay to do it, but I'm just taking it in and looking for the signs, and, every now and then a new thing will pop up that'll be on top of what I'd already thought about. So like the podcast, I wanted to put some new music to it and have my son redo the music and make it more peppier and that kind of stuff. And then next thing I know, I'm like, ooh, I want to do video podcast.
Yeah.
And I have always been dreading to do that, but now it sounds really fun. So I'm like, oh, I think I want to do that. So it just keeps evolving.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be fun once I finally decide to execute it or go through it. It'll be great. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I also I want to make this, because I always like to point this out to you guys and to listeners, like, because you're not doing this extensive advertising marketing list, right? You're just basically showing up and, I don't know, saying how awesome your life is.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
That's how I describe it, right?
Yeah,
you're doing what you love and you're just sharing it. You're making more money because you're not spending that extra time. So when we put that to $1 per hour value, you're making much more money than when you were doing that whole list.
Absolutely. And what I find too is that more opportunities are popping up. So like when I said that about the podcast, and I had 3 people reach out to me last week that wants to be on my podcast. And
awesome.
And these are people that I would love to have on my podcast. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like that these guys want to be on it. And so I told them I was heading out for an epic ride. I'd get back in touch with them when I got back. And they were okay with that. I didn't jump on like, oh my gosh, I have to get them in the books now. I don't, or else they won't go on my pod. None of that crossed my mind. I was just so focused on doing my ride and having some fun. And so I reached out to all of them today and said, this is the availability. And so I'm really excited about how it's all unfolding in that aspect too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And I had, which is funny is I know there's some big growth coming because last week I even sent you a text message.
Yeah.
I had an emotional day, like an emotional ride, the week prior to me leaving for this big ride. And, I was like, okay, something's coming. I can feel that growth is on its way. So, and it already started because of, when I was packing for the ride, I had, $1,200. I got back from the ride. I had over $2,000, so the growth is coming.
Yes.
It's coming. So, and the fact that I'm more aware of it because how I was feeling is awesome too. So, and I just said, after I sent you the message, because when I sent you the message, I was in tears and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm open to receiving. I'm always taken care of. And so I was like, I'm ready. And so I just let it go and just felt the feelings and it was great. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Super, super amazing.
I love it. Yay. I'm so excited. I mean, and I think because you're prepared, it's going to be a little less bumpy than it has been in the past, right? Because you're like, oh, this is coming. Like the money's coming. I'm willing to receive it, willing to own it. And yeah.
And it's funny because that pattern is coming back, like the last 2 times with David and the money, right? So now David's in that funk again. And so I knew it was coming. That's the weirdest part. I knew it was coming. And so instead of me trying to make it better, I just let him have those feelings. And he's still kind of going through. So when he moves through it, I'll sit and talk with him and I'll just say, listen, this is a pattern we've had. I brought it up to him last time it happened. I said, do you see the pattern? And then I'm just going to bring it up again and say, okay, here's that pattern again of that feeling. So the last time it didn't affect me as much as the first time. Right. And this time it didn't affect me at all. Like it didn't even seep in. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's not that I don't care. And it's not that I'm saying his feelings don't matter because they do. I just feel like he needs to do his own growing and healing. And I'm just opening that space for him. Yeah. And just going about doing my thing. And it's proven to work because of the 5,000 that I brought in this month.
Yes.
So I'm like, yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And such an amazing space to be in with him because it isn't, and it doesn't do any good to feel bad with him when you don't feel bad.
Exactly.
Like, there's no benefit in making yourself feel bad, just so you can feel bad with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's amazing. I'm so excited. So tell us about your ride. Tell us why you decided to do this ride. And then I want to talk about some things that came up along the journey. Okay.
And before we do that, I just want to share a fun story because in our Manifest 10K, we're doing a scavenger hunt. And so I got to share the story because it's so great.
Awesome.
I love the story. So David had to go to the bank, and we took our mini motos because we just love taking those places. And it was so funny. Like, there was a thunderstorm coming. You could see it in the distance and hear it. It just, the sun was out right above us. So we're like, oh, let's just go anyway. And we're only going to the bank and back, which is probably about 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back, right? So we took the minis, and he pulls in because we don't go inside right now. So we went into the drive-through, and we're sitting there. We turn our bikes off. And I look over and I see a penny on the ground. And I looked at him, and my eyes were huge. And I mean, you can't see anything because we have our big helmet on. My eyes got huge. He says, what? And I was like, I found a penny. Like, so I got wicked excited. He's like, oh my God. I jump off my bike. I go and I grab it. And I was like, we're doing a scavenger hunt. I found my penny. And he goes, awesome. I said, so I'm setting the intention to find dimes. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I skipped over nickels. Like, oh, I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to look for dimes. And he just started laughing. Like, he put So that was the day before I left for my ride. And so when I went on my ride, I got back from my first day of riding. We took a walk across the street to get some ice or whatever. And I looked down, and there's a dime on the ground. And I was like, I found a dime. But before I found the dime, I was at a store with my daughter doing the same thing, getting ice. And the guy in front of me was paying. And the woman responded, she goes, I don't have anything but dimes. I'm just going to give you change of dimes. Like, oh, it's coming. There's my evidence.
Yes.
And then the next day I found the dime on the ground. So it was really fun. And then I found a quarter on my ride, but I was going downhill really fast, so I couldn't stop to get it. And then I found 2 pennies too along the way.
That's amazing.
So it was just really fun. And I literally was hoot and hollering when I found it. I was like, woohoo! Not just because I was going downhill.
Yes.
The pennies and the quarter. They were all at different areas of the ride, and it was just what I needed at the moment to lift my spirits. So it was awesome.
Yay! I love it.
That's my scavenger hunt story. I wanted to share that.
I love that. And my favorite is the evidence of the dimes. And
right?
Do you think you would have seen that evidence 2 years ago or even a year ago? And it makes it more fun, right? Maybe a year. Yeah.
Maybe a year ago, but not 2 years ago. Because I'm always looking, like, I always use a card everywhere I go. I don't usually have cash on me. So I'm really aware of listening to that stuff and hearing it, and what David gets back for change, because he carries cash all the time. He doesn't use a card. So I see it. I was like, ooh, you got this. Ooh, you got that. Which is really funny. So maybe fun. A year ago I would have, but not 2 years ago.
Yeah. I love it. It just makes it more fun almost when you see that piece of evidence. You're like, oh, it's coming. Like, yes, because now you trust it and you believe in that, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that means it's around the corner.
Exactly. Yeah. And that dime one was so fun.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, he's getting all the dimes. There it is. There's my evidence. That was great.
I love it.
So how you had asked how I came about doing this ride, and so last year I rode some of David had a bike, loved his bike. It was a road bike. I do a lot of mountain biking, and I was like, you know what, I really want to start doing on the road. And so I did it a couple times. We live in a real hilly area. And I was like, this is really, the grind is what I love. And I was like, okay, this is a really big challenge. And some of the hills we have here are pretty, the percent of the grade is really big. And so it's a challenge. It's physically and mentally challenging. And so when I was doing it, I was like, you know what? I want to do a century. I've never done a century before. And that's when you do 100 miles. And so I was like, this is interesting. So this winter, I was hiking with a couple of girls that are in the wellness program at the company that I am doing some side work for. And we were hiking one of the mountains, and one of the ladies' husband is a biker. And she goes, and they're both runners. They were going to do the Vermont 100 relay race. So they were going to run 100 miles in Vermont on the Vermont 100 route. I hope I'm making sense here. And so they were going to do a relay race, and they wanted me to run with them. And I was like, I don't run anymore. I don't want to do that. Does not sound fun to me. If it was a trail, I might do it, but it's on the road. It's like, no, I'm not interested. And the woman said to me, she goes, oh, my husband's going to do the Vermont 200. And I was like, well, what's that? And she goes, you ride the Vermont 100 route, which is 200 miles. And it's at the tip of Vermont by Canada all the way down to Massachusetts. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went home and I immediately looked it up and I found it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I would love to do this. And I was like, okay, how many months do I have until then? And the ride is in June. And I found this out in the winter. So by the time everything thawed out and I could even ride on the road, it only gave me 3.5, 4 months of training. So, I was like, okay, I think I can make this happen. And so I did a lot of rowing. I had a row challenge on purpose so that everybody could row with me to get my, endurance up. And then after, that's when the snow was melting. And then after that is when I started to ride. And, so I was like, all right, well, I am only going to have to do this. I know I can't do with my pace that I'm doing and the elevation that they're going to get, which was wrong, by the way. I read the ride notes wrong. I thought I was supposed to get 9,500 feet in elevation. I got over 14,000 feet in elevation.
Wow.
So, I wouldn't have done training any different, but, but the fact that it was more than that, I was like, wow, that's crazy. I was like, okay, over 9,000 feet in elevation, 200 miles. I'm like, I couldn't do it in one day because they wanted us to be off the road before sunset. So I said, okay, well, my pace is this, and I know I can do this in 2 days. So I'm just going to break it up into 2 days. And so I had this lovely group of women that I knew I could do it with. And I knew it was going to be a grind, and I didn't want to do it with anybody else other than these 3 women. And so I invited them along and they all said yes, which I thought was great. I was so excited. And then 2 of them decided that they were not going to do it. I was a little bummed, but I was like, you know what? It's okay. There's going to be more. It's okay. There's plenty of time that we can all do a ride together. And then my good friend who lives here locally backed out on me too. She's like, I don't have the ability to do that. So I was like, oh, so now I'm going to have to do it by myself. And at first I was disappointed. And then, David said to me, he's like, I think you're probably going to need to do this by yourself. Well, having done the ride, I'm glad I did it by myself because I said to you, if I had anyone there, they probably wouldn't be my friend because it was such a grind. The second day was such a grind. And what I thought was really funny about it, my body, I knew was ready. Without a doubt, I knew it was ready. The weekend prior, I did my first full 100 and I did it to the ocean, which I love the ocean. I did it out there and then back. And I'm glad I did it because that ride, I got a headwind. I've never experienced the headwind here because we have mountains and trees and all that stuff. I mean, you'd get some, but not like I experienced by the ocean. It was so bad. And I couldn't get it. I was like looking around at the trees. I'm like, there's no wind. Why? Where is this coming from? I was like, what is happening? You're like a new cyclist. I don't understand this stuff, So I was just like, what is going on? So that was a hard day. But what was really cool about it was that my nephew was 10 miles away from the finish line where he lived and on my practice ride. And so I stopped in and he immediately filled up my water bottles, gave me some ice water, let me snuggle his 4-month-old baby, who's my nephew. And I just had to love him. So I got to snuggle with him. And I spent like 20 minutes with him, regrouped, got back on the bike, and I went. And he was turning 30 the next day, my nephew. And he's like, look at you, 45, doing 100-mile bike ride. Here I am, 30. Sitting home watching TV with my baby. And I looked at him, it was like the hottest day of the year. It was 98 degrees. The humidity was over 87% or something like that. And I looked at him, I was like, I think you're doing it right. You're staying in the AC. So I get home. The next day was his party and it was a pool party. So I saw him the next day and he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, fine, I have no problem. I'm not sore or anything. He was like, man, that's crazy. So he's like, you're definitely ready. I was like, I know I am. I was like, it's this that I have, my brain I have to worry about. And so I went in, I was so excited, Kathy, I couldn't sleep for 2 days prior. It felt like Christmas to me. like the first Thursday night, I was like, did I pack this? Did I pack that? Do I have everything? Because I helped David all last week at his office, and I helped him that morning before I left. So I had to get everything done on Thursday, his day off. So obviously my brain was like, did I do this? Did I do that? I'm like checking off my list as I'm supposed to be sleeping. And then the next morning I woke up, went to help him, came home. My daughter was here waiting for me. We jumped in my Jeep and we drove. We drove to Vermont. She had never been to Vermont before. And I so enjoyed that time with her. The stuff we talked about was just so meaningful. And it was just such a deep conversation. So I just cherished that moment with her. And then we got to the Airbnb. The woman was amazing. She had just had knee surgery. She opened up her house to us. She sat with us while I cooked us meal, and she was asking about how we eat, just carnivore. So she was like, what does this entail? What are you doing? You don't eat any vegetables? And it was just really fun. So she sat there with us. And then I tried to get to bed early because I was getting up at 2 a.m. and couldn't sleep. But Monica was in bed with me, next to me, doing her stuff. She didn't make a peep, but I still couldn't sleep. Just knowing she was there too was very awesome. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up getting up early, doing my ride, but I did my normal routine. I did my journaling in the morning. I did my meditation, which was really nice. It set it off at a good pace. And then the day was beautiful. I literally was crying at certain scenes that I saw. It was just like out of like the National Geographic. That's the only way I could think of it. It was just gorgeous. And the pictures I took didn't do it justice. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then I hit mile 100 and I punched in my bed and breakfast address where I was standing, and I found it was another 30 miles. I lost my mind because I was ready to only do over 100.
Yeah.
Lost my mind. I did. I literally started crying. I was like, I don't know if I have 30 more miles in me, because it was all headwind that I was in. So I was like, I don't know if and I know it's a big elevation gain that's in front of me because I had to get to Killington. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So in that moment, I literally was hyperventilating, literally. And I just sat on the bench in the shade, put my head between my legs and just cried. I was like, just feel it. Just feel it. Don't fight it. It is what it is. And then I just kind of picked myself up and I was like, you're always taken care of. Your body's amazing. It can do anything. Just get it together and go. And I was like, okay, David's waiting for me at the end. I'm going. So I did. And, that is when a lot of the inspiration hit of things that I wanted to do. It was literally almost a 10-mile hike up, all uphill. And I just kept my head down. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I mean, look at my life. Look what I'm doing. Look where everything is. It's all perfect. It's all falling into place. It's exactly how it should be at this moment in time. And so I'm like, why are you bitching? Why are you, so it was awesome. It pulled me out of that. And, that was like the most amazing aha right there, was being able to do that, because I was in such a dark place knowing I had to go another 30 miles.
Yeah.
And to be able to think of everything that I was grateful for. And it started with little things just to pull myself out. And then I was like, wait a minute. No. I was like, look at all of this. And so it was amazing to be able to do that. It was such an eye opener for me, definitely. And then to get up the next day to do it all over again, was just, and I knew at this point, I said to David, I was like, I'm planning on doing 130 today. Because if I was mentally ready for it, it's okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't do 130 that day, but I was ready to do 130 that day because the first day was. So it was great. He was there with me the first hour. And we were just like hopping, and he was in my Jeep. I get so excited when I saw that Jeep coming, because it was my Jeep, and nobody has a Jeep like my Jeep. And I love my Jeep, and I love David. And I was just like, this is so awesome. Like I've got these guys here with me this morning. It was just really great to see that. And I could hear it coming behind me because of the tires and stuff. I was like, that's my Jeep. And, and it was really cool because I didn't know where he was going to be waiting for me. So it made it wicked exciting. So I was able to pedal harder, knowing that he was waiting somewhere for me. I was like, where's he going to be? And so he drove home, which is another 2 hours. And then he's like, tell me when you're, 30 miles away. I was like, okay. So I called him and I was like, I'm 16 miles away. I just realized. He goes, oh, you are? He goes, well, I better get going now. And I was like, it'll be perfect because I'm averaging 10 miles every hour. So I said, you'll be there probably about the same time as me. And he's like, okay, cool. So he packed up and left and I jumped back on the bike. And because it was a 10 mile per hour wind I had this time, not just headwind, but I also had 10 mile per hour wind. So it was pretty, but it was nice because it was really hot and it cooled me off because I was sweating. So that was great. But I got to the Reedsboro Inn where it's supposed to end. But if you really want to get to the Mass border, that's how most people do it. So I didn't have service and I just trusted that he would find me and that he would know that I went on. And so I was like, if anything, I'm just going to go 3 miles, hit the Mass border, take a picture, and then I'll just ride back down to the finish line. No big deal. And this was where I was supposed to get 1,000 feet in elevation. And so I took off and sure enough, I hear the Jeep coming behind me. I was not even a mile up. And he pulls over and he's like, I've got some ice water for you. He goes, you want to charge your phone for a minute? Take like a 5-minute break. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I did. And we both read the ride notes. It was only supposed to be 3 miles to the border. It ended up being 10 miles to the border. So he kept hopping and it was beautiful, right? Like beautiful, river and all that. And so he gets to the end of the road. He goes, I go, where's the sign? He goes, 5 more miles. And I was like, 5 more? I said, didn't I just do 5? He goes, yeah, you got 5 more. And he goes, good news, it's pretty much flat. And I was like, no way. So I was pedaling hard and he was just like, he waited at the bottom of a hill. He goes, this is the only hill you have. And it wasn't even a big one. This is the only hill you have. And then he'd take off and go. And it was just so fun having him there. He cooked me bacon and hard-boiled eggs for when I was done. Amazing. And he brought my favorite seltzer water. I didn't ask him for any of that stuff. He just did it. It was just so fun. And it was, I cried when I was done. And because it was such a huge feat for me. I was just like, that is just so amazing that I was able to do that. And that second day, I was mentally prepared. So a lot of inspiration came when I was biking. And so that was just such a, and the fact that I wasn't even sore after the second day. And I was just like, man, I could just keep on going. So, I mean, I learned a lot. Like I knew my body was ready, but man, I knew the training that I did was the right kind of training. That's how I know I found the right balance. I was, with you helping us stay on track with our thoughts and that kind of stuff helped tremendously. Being in the right mindset, so that all this other stuff kind of fell in balance is what really helped. And it was just such an awesome experience. And Monday, when you asked me, I was getting choked up talking about it on the call. I had a hard time talking about it without getting emotional. And I still get kind of emotional about it because it was so huge for me. Huge.
It was amazing. And what I love is that about a year ago, like it felt like you were losing everybody, right? And you're just like trying to hold on. And then and I get it because like, this is how I live my life now, right? I have been there. I wrote about it in one of the emails and I get what it's like to be here where you get to have this amazing experience by yourself. Like, would it have been fun with other people? Yes, maybe, whatever. But the important thing is that like, you could do it and you could own it and you could not get lost in the not having it, which made it even better for you and the experience of doing it on your own.
Yeah. And what was so amazing. Oh, you're going to love this story. So David asked me, he's like, so do you want to know the weather? I'm like, no. I don't. I know it's going to be perfect.
Right.
And he goes, whoa, okay. And this was like that Monday before I left on Friday. I was like, no, I don't need to know what it is. I said, I'll have everything I need anyway. So who cares what the weather is going to be? I can't control it at all. And he's like, okay. And so you could not have asked for better weather. It was gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. I was like, Cassie will love that. I manifested that nice weather because
totally.
I was like, it's going to be how it's supposed to be. So that was really cool. I loved that. And the fact that, I went not having any service and I just trusted that I knew the way. But road signs, there's road signs. Just use the road signs.
That's amazing.
The other two lessons I learned, which are pretty funny actually.
Yeah.
A local told me that there was some construction and he said, it's a milled road and it's dirt road. He goes, and it's for 5 miles. He goes, you might, at the bottom of this hill, you're going to want to take a left and you'll bypass a lot of that because 5 miles on a dirt road is not fun. And I was like, okay. And, I didn't have a GPS, so I didn't know if it was a straight shot after I took the left. So I was just like, I'm just going to go the right way. I'm going to go route 100. Oh my, it was 8 miles. It wasn't 5 miles. I'm like, because I was thinking to myself, us bikers, we over embellish, it's probably only 3 miles. No, he underestimated. It was 8 miles, not 5. It was so funny. And the other thing I learned was bring a tool set for both pedals, not just one pedal. So I wanted to switch out shoes the next day and it's a different pedal that I needed for the shoe. I brought it for the pedal that I was going to use, but not the pedal that I had. So I had to wear the shoes again the next day. I was like, oh, it was so funny. But at the end, David said, so did you have any issues? I had none. Like I didn't have to put in air in my tire.
Awesome.
My tires didn't pop. And of course it didn't because everything goes as planned for me.
Yes.
So, yeah. He was like, that's amazing. 230 miles and you didn't have an issue with your bike. I was like, nope, not at all.
Awesome. Of course not.
Of course not.
Oh, I love it. So, because we're coming to the end. So I just want to hear a little bit about, right about this time, your interviews from a year ago were coming out, or your interviews from the previous year.
They are.
And
those.
yeah, they're amazing and they're making such an impact. And so I would love if you share any thoughts or anything that's come up as you listen or just anything.
Yeah, a lot has come up since I listened. And it's good that I get to know, to see the change that I've done. And I can hear it even in my voice and the way that I talk. I can definitely hear that. And it's just awesome to hear the changes and how much I've grown. And, I think listening to them too, it kind of got me questioning about some of the stuff that I was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, am I doing that again? So I think I've even asked you on one of the back of our Enchanted Circle calls, I had said, am I doing this the right way or am I messing this up? Because it made me, listening to that made me think, oh my gosh, am I still doing that? I think that was the underlying of that question that I asked you. But it's just so fun to hear that. And I'm like, oh, I don't do that anymore. Oh my gosh, I definitely don't do that anymore. And it's just really fun to hear where I've been. And I think I know it's still a learning. Yeah. A learning lessons for me and listening to those too, because it just helps me keep aware of things that I'm doing just to make sure I'm not falling back into those patterns again. And I really honestly don't feel that I am, which is great. And, I'm taking a lot more ownership for my expense, not my expenses, but my investments. And, it feels good to be able to do that. So it's just been such a great journey. I just look back on it and I'm like happy. And obviously I needed to go through that stuff to have the awareness to change it and to do something different. Yeah. So I'm super excited to be able to do another workshop and to find, I know I've changed a lot and to relearn, or to not relearn, but just to know the new path that my future self is going to be taking, because I'm already where I was, where I wanted to be. Yeah. A couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
I'm already there. So
Yeah.
I need to dream bigger.
Awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Man, I'm going to make some notes because there's so many other things I want to talk about next time. Just a couple things that, came up in your interview a lot are about your interviews and just things like that. Because I think they're so good and such a good reminder, and just so many cool things have happened.
Yeah, a lot of cool things have happened. So
yeah.
I love hearing it. And it wasn't that long ago that they're coming out. So that it was the end of last year. And actually the ones that just came out were at the beginning of COVID too. So, which was 4 or 5 months ago. So it's been really cool to listen. Even then, there's a huge change in who I am and what I've done. So absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Any other, definitely tell people how they can connect with you.
Yeah. Thank you. So all social media, K8 for Wellness. That's the letter K, the number 8, and then a space, the number 4, a space, then wellness. And that's even my website, and my podcast is that, as well as Instagram. So those are the 3 platforms that I'm on.
Amazing. Any final thoughts or anything you want to say as we wrap up today?
Oh, dream big is all I can say. Dream big. That seems to be the theme, because it happens.
It does. I love it. Amazing. Awesome.
Thank you for everything you do, Cassie.
Thank you for being you and for sharing this moment in your journey with us. It's been amazing.
It's been amazing.
It has. And make sure to come back. Thank you all to those that are listening. Come back next time and check out what else is awesome in Kate's life.
Thank you for joining us on the Law of Attraction, Manifesting Success Stories show. To learn how to identify your current money story, go to identifyyourmoneystory.com.